I.O.T, powering the digital economy. Brought to you by Schneider Electric.
Everything we consume, from the food we eat to the cars we drive and the gadgets we buy, is either grown or it's dug out of the ground. Without mining, we wouldn't have the materials that we need to give consumers what they want. Mining is at the heart of the innovation explosion, and that same innovation is now having an impact on the mining sector.
The mining sector has been slow to adopt digital technology, but it's making up for lost time. Driverless truck fleets have been operating for over 10 years, and remote operating centers have taken a lot of the workforce out of danger zones.
This innovation is improving productivity across the whole supply chain. The faster delivery of products in greater volumes means higher quality and opportunities for new and more diverse product lines.
But how will consumers benefit? To find out, I'm meeting the head of innovation who looks after the world's biggest copper deposits. I'll speak to the digital-first mining company shaking up the industry. And I'll find out which technologies the mining sector plans to adopt in the future.
Digital technology is making an impact in every business sector, but mining has been slow to adapt to new ways of working. For many years, it was seen as a dirty, labor-intensive industry, but things are changing, and they're changing fast.
One company at the forefront of that change is Codelco. It's the state-owned mining company of Chile, a country sitting on the largest copper deposit in the world. Sebastian Carmona Caldera is the head of innovation at Codelco. He's been looking after their mining technology and sustainability policy since 2014. Verified figures show the company produces around 1.8 million tons of copper a year. That's over 9% of the world production. Their mining operation can't expand beyond the borders of Chile, so their only option is to dig deeper.
Every time a year passes, we go one level down, right? And deeper and deeper and deeper. So every year that passes becomes more challenging because costs are going to increase. The truck is just going to go down and down and down, and it's going to use more fuel, right? It's as simple as that. And the rock is going to become harder the deeper you go as well. So in order for us to preserve the cash flows, every year we need to think of doing things differently how we did it before. And that means developing technology and including technology from all over the world as well. So it's not just that we develop what we need, but we know what we need on rock or different sulfides, oxides, and we look and scout for technologies all around the world as well.
So perhaps you could give us examples of the types of innovations that have come through to make things more efficient in the mining sector.
The newest mine that we inaugurated is called Ministroales, right? And this mine has one special feature, that it had a higher content of arsenic in its concentrate, in the ore, right? So we knew about this mine 20 years ago, but because of the arsenic, there was nothing we could do. And we finally built the largest roaster in the world in order to process this dirty concentrate and get rid of the arsenic. And now, after 3 or 4 years with running that roaster, we improved the productivity so high that now with that roaster, we are taking concentrate from other mines, from Peru or different mines in Chile. And we're using that to produce more copper also.
Does being a state-owned company limit the amount of investment that you can make in innovation?
No. I would actually say a little bit is the opposite. Because we are a state-owned company, it's not easy for us to grow and go somewhere else. If we need to grow and look for more copper or more gold, we are very, very much forced to look deeper into our existing deposit. And we have mines. We have 2 mines that are older than like over 100 years of exploitation. So these mines are very old. So when we were in Chuquicamata, for example, which is roughly 103 years old, when we were running out of, and the open pit was getting too deep, we decided to go underground. So we just built a shaft, and we're building a shaft, and the rest of the ore deposit, we're gonna go underground, right? So for that, we needed to spend a lot of money on innovation, because it's not that we're facing country challenges, it's not that we're facing community challenges to enter into different jurisdictions, it's not that. We are just facing technical challenges. And in order to solve our technical challenges, it's all about innovation and deploying new technology for us. That's the only thing that can enable us to continue in business or doing business.
Innovation, we know that it's supposed to be driving efficiency, and I guess it is doing that, but who exactly benefits from this? Is it, the profit of the business, or is it really the consumer that is getting things cheaper?
Well, I believe it's the consumer all the time. Like, imagine that we are producing right now as an industry almost 20 million tons of copper every year, right? If we were not being able to produce those, and we just produce 10 million tons of copper, so copper would be very expensive. We believe that by producing more, we're actually keeping the price down. From the consumer perspective, we are looking to supply what the world needs to keep growing. And not rich countries, but developing countries. They are the ones that need the most the power grid. They are the ones that needs the most electricity and light. So that's how we believe our purpose is.
Companies such as Codelco have made big inroads in rolling out innovation and cutting costs. But many established companies are hampered by ancient legacy infrastructure, and there's only a handful of mining disruptors following an alternative path.
But true mining adapter companies have now become disruptors, and one of them is BHP. They're the world's largest mining company, and they've invested heavily in the latest digital innovation. From this building in the Western Australian city of Perth, their Remote Operations Centre, or I.O.T, uses I.O.T technology to operate mines thousands of kilometres away. It's where I'm meeting General Manager Marie Bourgoin. I wanted to find out how things have changed in the 10 years since she's been involved in the sector.
Things have really evolved in the past 10 years, and what we see in the I.O.T, in our Remote Operations Centre, is really at the frontier of digital operations and innovation, and this is really fascinating.
Would you say, though, that the industry as a whole has been slow to adapt to innovation?
Look, I'm not sure. I think there is a lot happening and a lot that we aren't seeing because a lot is happening in remote location. We're indeed having a state-of-the-art facility in the heart of Perth, controlling equipment from pit to port, so drill control, mine, which is associated with the dispatch of the trucks in the pit, crusher or handling plant, train control, port control, which captures dumpers as well as ship loaders, and that is controlling equipment 1.5 to 2,000 kilometers away from the center where we actually operate them. How it all comes together is really through the technology that supports this asset. And this is the whole point, I guess, of a digital operations. Our assets and our critical assets are actually systems, production systems, downtime management system, telecommunication systems, networks, CCTV cameras so that we can keep eyes on the ground at any point in time. All those systems come together and are integrated and highly reliable so that we can keep the lights on and operate this place 24/7, 1.5 to 2,000 kilometers away from where the operations or the physical assets are actually located.
What's the key to the success then of the business?
Key point to the success of the business is to really operate this business by optimizing, integrating and improving the supply chain end-to-end from pit to port as one business. And despite being a digital operations working in very close collaborations with our site stakeholders, the relationship with sites is at the forefront of everything we do. We have to stay aligned on our plans and our schedule. We have to stay connected when we make decisions. We have to make sure that our controllers here understand the impact of the decisions they make here on the ground over there. And conversely, we need to be aware of anything happening over there so that in time we can actually respond very proactively to an event happening locally so that it doesn't have a ripple effect through the entire supply chain.
You mentioned working with other stakeholders, and I wanted to know just how that innovation has changed the way you work with, your partner businesses.
We always look at what our partners, competitors in this industry, in other industries are up to, so that we can actually stay abreast of the innovation and the technology out there, and also understand how we can better solve our complex problems. For example, with manufacturers, equipment manufacturers, we regularly liaise with them to share lessons learned, to share insights, particularly as it pertains to safety. As I mentioned before, prior to kicking off the study phase for our Integrated Remote Operations Centre, we benchmark control rooms of other industries across the world to understand the lesson learned and any insights that we can take as we put our plan forward. At the moment, we're particularly interested in what the aerospace industry or the automobile industries are doing, especially as it pertains to how integration plays a part in driving a manufacturing mindset, so that ultimately in the future we can run a supply chain that is highly predictable, highly reliable, fully integrated and highly optimized end to end.
Would you then say that that innovation is disrupting the sector, or is it disrupting BHP?
When you think about when the Remote Operations Centre was introduced, it was really the introduction of the first concept of digital operations in mining. And what is it about? It's optimizing through data and connectivity right in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution. You have people that have the opportunity to be removed from the line of fire, and now production that is driven by people working on control systems as opposed to people working on physical infrastructure. You're actually managing intellectual infrastructure as opposed to physical infrastructure. This is definitely a pioneer and frontline thinking in order to drive the industry forward. With regards to disrupting to BHP, I mean, is it any changes? Really, but it is necessary to remain competitive in a global market.
Remote operations centres such as this could solve logistical problems for a whole host of businesses in different sectors of industry. But there are bigger challenges for the mining sector. I'll be taking a closer look at those after the break. The mining sector has an impact on every aspect of our lives. It drives the world's economies, providing jobs for thousands of people and profits for big business. But increasingly, the focus is on building bridges with communities. Wendy Tyrrell is Executive Director at the Development Partner Institute, an organization that seeks to advance innovative thinking amongst stakeholders in the mining sector. Rob Moffat is one of those stakeholders. He's president of Schneider Electric's mining interests.
So I think the mega trends that are impacting the mining sector are well known. There's increased population growth around the world. We're expecting there to be 9 billion people on this planet, all right, in the not too distant future. More and more people are wanting to move into cities and live an urban lifestyle as opposed to a rural lifestyle. We predict that in Africa, there's going to be a 50% increase in urbanization across Africa by the year 2025. With increased urbanization comes the increased want of people to have what probably most of us take for granted. You know, to live in a nice house, to drive a nice car, to have great infrastructure in terms of rails, ports, roads, etc. All of that impacts the mining community because most of that comes from what we do in the mining community in terms of generating those minerals.
Across the world, it's becoming more expensive to access minerals, and productivity improvements are therefore critical. And that's why also, as society's expectations and community expectations continue to grow, it becomes increasingly important for the mining sector to use technology and innovation to improve their productivity, to reduce their costs, to operate safely, and to limit as far as possible the impacts to communities and the environment.
The mining companies need to do all of that while keeping up with consumer demand for new technologies.
with the increase in technology, there's an increase of minerals that are mined. The electric vehicles, which has a huge impact on lithium and cobalt. And in a typical smartphone, there's up to 62 different minerals that are mined. So there's that aspect as well.
For Codelco, there are bigger challenges, such as making the jobs they offer appealing to younger people.
In Chile right now, our labor force is becoming younger and younger. We have a lot of millennials now, and they love to be challenged. They get bored if you give them the same job for 20 years or 30 years. They want to see the new machine. They want to see the new truck and operate it. They want to start programming and coding. They want to do that, so they're very eager.
The mining sector traditionally has big legacy infrastructure, so it'll be interesting to know how you sort of integrate the innovation with, the existing, traditional infrastructure you have.
Yeah, that's a tough question. So all these processing plants have to be changed, equipment by equipment, every 10 years or something like that. So we're always looking to be at the state-of-the-art technology-wise. But then the challenge is not about the technology, because you can get the technology. We have good partners. It's all about how it integrates with the workers there and with the cultural changes. Because these guys, our workers, have been working in there for 20, 30 years, and now comes the new equipment. So we need to spend a lot of time and effort and money and resources on training, and maybe changing the way they think things, they see and operate things as well, and put the right incentives in place.
The impact on the workforce is also a concern from Marie Bourgois of BHP. But her belief is that strong leadership in the introduction of new technology is half the battle.
The I.O.T has been open for a few years now, so there is certainly a much higher level of acceptance, and working both from our own workforce and also for our workforce on site, working together very closely. What is important, like any change, I guess, for leaders, is to actually create the circumstances under which the change will be led, to make sure that we create acceptance and the conditions for readiness in our own workforce for any technology or any innovation that we introduce. So there was a lot of work that was spent on understanding what was going to be the component to make sure that we're ready to actually open the I.O.T and understand any opportunities, to make sure we capitalize on the value opportunity, and also understand any risks so that we have the right controls in place. Most broadly, the workforce has adapted really well and welcomed this technology with all those controls in place, and over time actually do realize the opportunity it gives them to work in a state-of-the-art facility, working in a digital operations, working still in operations despite in the heart of Perth, and the ability to work with a variety of people that they wouldn't necessarily work with, or that would have more typical mining background if they were working on site.
Mining is an ancient industry thrust headlong into the 21st century, and disruptors such as BHP are changing business perceptions of the sector through innovation. But what does the future hold for such a vital industry? I'll find out after the break. Innovation is the key to how the Internet of Things works now and how it will develop in the future. That same innovation will continue to have an impact on the mining sector in unexpected ways. You have over 10 years experience in this industry, the mining industry. When you look back, could you even imagine this type of innovation that's coming through in the sector? Did you see this coming?
Do you have a crystal ball? I mean, without a crystal ball, it's very difficult to predict, to have predicted in the past what would have happened, or to predict what will happen in the future. I would say very few would have been able to understand the extent of the possibilities that we're today realizing. But probably, and most likely, very few would have been able to predict the pace of change of many industries, including the mining industry. And I think if someone had tried to predict, they would have probably constrained their thinking around the possibilities, because the reality is we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, we're in a world now that's all about artificial intelligence, blockchain technology in the financial sector. Are these things that you can imagine would come through in the mining sector in the future?
Artificial intelligence, definitely. For me, the way I see artificial intelligence is the art of transforming a large amount of data into business intelligence so that teams can make better, smarter, and faster decisions. And there is huge intrinsic value associated with quality of the decisions and with the time you take to make a decision.
What does the future hold for the innovation that you're using now at BHP specifically?
Look, again, without a crystal ball, it's very difficult to predict. One thing for sure, change is the only constant, and we are very agile and remain abreast of all the technology and the innovation that is out there and what it has to offer and how we apply it to actually solve complex problems and unlock more long-term sustainable value for our shareholders.
Well, are there any plans in place, anything that you're working on now, perhaps for the short to medium term that you could perhaps tell us about?
Artificial intelligence will continue to be at the forefront of how we think about planning, how we think about optimizing scheduling, and also how we think about our execution and particularly our deviation management to make sure that at any point in time we have a very effective management of the supply chain from pit to port, and adding employees with decision support tools and artificial intelligence and business intelligence so that in turn they can make not just better decisions but a lot faster decisions.
What does all this innovation then mean for society at large?
It means a continued and guaranteed access to resources and commodities for many years to come. And as you know, those are used in many different products that we use on a daily basis. So they are fundamental to the growth of the future and the growth and the industrialization of the world. It will mean that we'll be able to look differently at how we do things, from extraction to processing to our logistics supply chain. And it will mean that we'll expand the remit of what is possible to achieve in terms of how we go about optimizing our supply chain.
On the other side of the world, in Chile, the challenges are much greater for Sebastian Carmona Caldera of Codelco. But with those challenges come opportunity.
We expect, for us it's critical to focus on one key thing, is to become a more sustainable industry. We use water for our process, and we use a lot of space, acres if you like. So what we're trying to do for the long term is to reduce significantly our CO2 impact, the water consumption impact that we do, and the space, the landscape.
And what new innovations, perhaps in other sectors, do you think would be beneficial in the future to the mining sector?
I believe the most important innovation that we are bringing from all industries is preemptive maintenance. So we can detect earlier if something's going wrong, if there's a temperature that's too high, or if the pressure is too high or it's too low. And we are able to predict with algorithms, again, when should we be doing maintenance to our equipment.
And does this innovation keep you competitive?
Yes, it's the only way for us to be competitive, is just looking for innovation time after time. So,
yeah, and if you could predict where the mining sector in 10 years' time in Chile would be, what would you say?
I have a positive outlook of our sector. I believe the copper price is going to keep strong because the demand is going to keep healthy. There's many places, not only in China, but India and Indonesia, for example, that need copper. So we will just need to find a way of doing it safely and environmentally friendly as well.
Given where we are now, the fact that you're already making this, innovation in the mining sector in Chile, are you starting to see costs of products actually getting cheaper because of the innovation?
Not getting cheaper, but not getting higher. Innovation until now has helped us by keeping the cost down. If we keep the cost down, the price keeps at a regular level, right? Every time we innovate, it impacts the prices. Every time a new mine's open and brings, 500,000 tons of copper every year, that's more supply, right? And because there's more supply, the price is going to keep down. And so that's how we do things, yeah.
And surely if you can get that right, then it'll have a big impact on, society at large.
Yes, and that's what we have. That's our vision, at least.
The hope is that this kind of innovation drives forward greater efficiencies to meet consumer demand. If that's a success, then mining has a great future.
I.O.T. Powering the digital economy. Brought to you by Schneider Electric.